Thanks for tuning in to another episode of My Next Property. My name's Steve Ash. I'm the founder of Property Strats. I've built an 8-figure portfolio. I'm an ex-vice president at Goldman Sachs, and I'm helping everyday Australians do the same thing. Kurt, good to have you back on. How are things?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Back in rainy Gold Coast today.
Rainy Gold Coast today, yeah, indeed. And we're going to talk about we had a really good sort of session last week talking about Cairns. And now we're going to move on to one of my favourite suburbs, which I love to, I say that with a hint of irony because I've actually debated against it, but we're going to have a little bit of a look at Townsville. And I thought it'd be great to we hear a lot about Townsville. It's on the pods all the time. We know that the buyers agents have been very active in that area over the last 2 to 3 years, but we don't get many perspectives from people who have boots on the ground. Now, I know you're in Cairns, but you're obviously very close. I think Townsville's about an hour and a half, isn't it? South?
4 hours away south, yeah.
Is it 4 hours?
4 hour drive, yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, I've got that totally wrong.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But probably to touch on that, most of my clients are either Townsville, Cairns, all around the country, but I do a lot in Townsville.
Yeah. No, it is. And sort of like somewhere like Townsville, it has, from 2021, 2022, growth has been quite phenomenal, hasn't it?
Yeah, it was more from 22, 23 to now.
Okay.
Yeah, it's done some extraordinary growth, maybe off the back of some BA interest there, right? But from 22 to 25, some of these suburbs have done 100%.
100%.
Or like 80, high 80%, which is
incredible.
Yeah, it is incredible but then the 10 years previous, it did nothing, right? So, there's
I think it's longer than that.
Yeah, you got to look at that and go, well, why? And it's particularly, I think BA's potentially just lit the flame in it.
Yeah.
Got it moving, right?
Yeah.
And probably previous to the scheme coming out or the change in the scheme, kind of wasn't too sure on where it was going to go. I think what we're going to see is Townsville's second wind. And I'm not saying it's going to go to the moon. I'm just saying that it's probably going to still see a bit more growth, right?
Yeah.
And it's just based on the $700,000 scheme cap limit.
Going back, and we'll look at this second one because I think it's a really good point you make. But with some of the numbers and some of the research I've done, I think Townsville did nothing. It really did well between 2001 2005. There was quite big growth. But between 2005 to, I suppose, 2022, it was pretty flat. And when I did a bit of research into this, we were looking at transactions that, say, in 2010 were around that 150,000 or so a year. Last year in 2024, it's something like 530, 540,000 transactions. So that's like not just buyers agents. I think it's people who are looking at investment courses, following sort of data trends, and it's kind of led to sort of Townsville. Yeah. And that's kind of perpetuated this kind of 100% growth in some areas, what you're saying. So now, because we're obviously recording this in November 2025, this is the interesting play. And we're thinking second wing market, so if we're buying in Townsville at the moment, what roughly are we kind of paying?
Depending on the area, obviously. But if you're looking at like your Kerwins, your Mount Louises, you're sort of in the 6 to 650 range now pretty easily. Okay. 650. Kerwin's had a lot of growth. I know the data lags on a lot of these data that BA has used, but on the ground, it's in the low to mid sixes already, which would be up like over $100,000 in like 12 months easily. Yeah. What you could pay 12 months ago. But that scheme limit is perfect for it, right? Because there is
right in the sweet spot.
Yeah, there's right in the sweet spot. But there is still purchases in the fives. So probably, when you're looking at different areas, I know people get hung up on data and but like Pimlico, for example, which is quite central to in the middle of Townsville. Yeah. Large blocks of land, 1,000 square meters, the house, older Queenslander on the front of it. They're the sort of, and there's some rezoning in those areas because it's proximity to the Mater Hospital. Yeah. I've actually got a client that's got one in Pimlico. He bought pre-COVID for like 240,000 or something. But it's a large block of land, and every house around them has either been subdivided or they've put blocks of units in there. Okay. So we're actually thinking probably to do that eventually, to do a knockdown and do it. So there's a good land play there.
Yeah. What would that be worth now? Is that kind of 600
it would have to be, 600. Yeah. Yeah. But maybe high 500, 600. Yeah. It's a bit of a hard one to say, but just because what is playing out on the ground.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I've got a bunch of first home buyers that have all just purchased. So I've had to do a lot of coaching around what we're going to say to agents to try and essentially have them have a win. And a lot of the feedback is like some of the agents just say, you can't even look at it.
Wow.
If you want to buy it, put an offer in, essentially I'd say they'd have other BAs ready to pounce on them regardless.
Yeah, so just purchasing off market, they know they can make.
I would often say, well, you just tell them that, you're first home buyer and I'm a local in Townsville and, I'm homeless or something to try and get the win. And are you going to look after locals? Are you going to look after interstate investors? It's, you put it back on the agents. Some of them that don't have a heart sort of just don't care.
Yeah.
But some of the good ones are actually looking to look after some of the first home buyers and think long term for when maybe some less demand there.
So with this second win market and first home buyers there, I mean, these are obviously people who've lived in the area a long time. I mean, it almost makes me wonder, just almost from an ethical point of view, how they could have purchased their house maybe a few years ago and it's 300,000 or 250, and now they're paying 500, 600. I know that's kind of like market, and you can extrapolate that out around the whole country. Part of me thinks it doesn't feel right, but maybe that's kind of the world we have to live in.
I've been working with one client for 2 years. From initial phone call to purchase, about 2 years, and that was based on inaction.
Yeah.
So it was always, it's got to crash or it's got to fall. And this is when we could have bought for 400.
Yeah.
And now we're buying at 600.
Yeah.
And the reason I've said he still thinks that it's potentially going to have some softening, but it's not going to go below that. And once that scheme deal come out, I said, there's no way it's going to stop. Because and no stamp duty up to 700.
Yeah.
So we're talking entry price of, 35 grand deposit, 36. You wrap it up for some registration fees, probably under 40 grand.
Incredible.
As a building and pit. So the entry point, and because a lot of my clients are like mining or construction, their incomes are high, right? So now they all come onto the scheme.
Yeah.
Because there's no income caps.
Yeah.
So now you've got all these people who can scrape together 35 grand.
Got the borrowing capacity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's pushing up that
up
market.
to the races. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is interesting. And it's I've filmed a few podcasts talking about this and the impact, and it's quite interesting not to derail this discussion with Brisbane, like, that whole market. Brisbane's up to, I think, 1 mil, isn't it? Same as Queensland. That whole market's just completely on fire at the moment. So it is hard. And bringing it back to Townsville, like the second win. So I suppose if people are listening to this, obviously I'm a long-term sort of value investor. That's how I've always viewed property. But in your opinion, I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, and I apologize for that. What would be the sort of kind of play in Townsville? What would you be kind of thinking about?
Yeah, well, you just want to be value investing again, right? So you want to be looking somewhere where it potentially hasn't done as much growth as other suburbs, which is a little bit harder to do now. But if you're looking for something that maybe starts in the fives, it's probably going to see more growth than something that starts with a 6, right? Because of the scheme deal. But then you've also got to think, all right, well, what else can I buy? What else? And I think that's that land banking play.
Yeah.
In those good areas, like Pimlico, like I spoke about.
Yeah.
Because beyond that scheme limit, it's going to be a bit of a hard one to pick, to be honest.
Yeah, no, it is. And I think it's something that we were talking about before we came on air. There does seem to be a few flip type plays here, and maybe the people who did buy in 2022 at 300 might actually be offloading some of those assets now.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting market.
First thing I check when a client sends me through a property, I check previous sold, and I mean anyone can get that data. But if I've seen it, I've seen ones being flipped in this current year, and it's just a Dulux overhaul being flipped. I'm out on that. I'm like, that's just someone's just made all that money in front of you.
What sort of example have you seen?
Oh, I think there was one not long ago. I can't remember the suburb. It was a big long name. It was like a 300s purchase. In like March 25. It obviously was a dunger.
Yeah.
It needed a lot of work, and then it had a Dulux overhaul, and it was sold in the 5s.
Yeah.
So someone's made
in the 5s.
Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't buy anything in the 3s now.
Yeah.
Some of these houses are in pretty bad state.
Yeah.
Right. And one thing to be careful about in Townsville is flood zones.
Okay. That's
you can look at flood overlays, but I'm telling you right now, like the way it flooded was very odd. It didn't just come from rivers. It backfilled drains and water come up from all sorts of places. So best thing you can do an insurance quote.
No, that's a really good tip.
Ballpark figure, if it starts with a 5, it's potentially had water in the vicinity. Starts with when I say start with a $5,000 a year for insurance.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But it should be probably in the threes.
In the threes.
These are these costs that make Townsville less appealing.
Yeah, it just takes a few minutes to jump on Terry Shear or whatever it might be.
Any of those ones, you can do it online.
Yeah.
And you'll soon know.
Yeah.
You obviously can do the due diligence with a flood overlay map.
Of course.
But I've had ones even knocked back by lenders because of the vicinity. Like they'll go 1 in 100, 1 in 50, and like they'll do a valuation, obviously, and they'll go, oh no, it's 1 in 50, don't like it.
Oh, God. So what happens there?
Well, but lender won't touch it. I know, like ING are big on like flood zones and bushfires.
Yeah, exactly. So if there's no finance clause, there's a bit of a problem then.
Yeah, a bit of a problem based on some flooding issues. But I mean, Townsville beyond the scheme in the next 12 to 18 months, and it sees all that growth and up to 700. I think long term though, it's got a lot more supply, particularly than Cairns. There's a lot of land being developed. Yeah, a lot of Brisbane developers, Lend Lease and all that included. So I've got probably 3 or 4 clients building, but titling isn't happening till next year. So a lot of land coming on board.
So what are we roughly looking at? Sort of plot size, done deal, sort of.
Yeah, depending on the plot sizes. So some of the ones at Alex Springs are the bigger blocks, which everyone chases. So, a house and land package in there will be sort of in the 8s for something decent. Probably a 200 square metre home on an 800, this is the Aussie dream. But then there's the smaller.
That's 800,000, is it?
Yeah. Yeah. But then there is the smaller house and land packages. Like I did a house and land package for a client in 23, 24, $512,000.
Okay.
House and land, 180 square, like there's the cookie cutter. But like that would probably start at the high 6s and the 7s now.
Yeah.
But there's still a lot more supply coming to market. There's a lot. If you jump on realestate.com and look at land releases, and Townsville's got so much land. It's a big land mass. So yes, it's got population growth, but it's going to have the supply there to go with it.
No, it's interesting about house and land. Generally buying, almost unanimously buying established is the way to go with property investing. But with house and land packages, if you do get in at the start of a cycle, it can be a very powerful 100%. Sort of strategy. But what we're seeing here is now because prices have grown up, so a lot of these for developers, the feasibility stack up a lot. And then it's just that stage in the cycle now. We're going to see a lot more sort of house and land come to market.
Well, yeah.
And that's going to dilute. And then potentially that could be a bit of a risk if we are holding it in Townsville long term.
Yeah. I mean, the 30K first homeowner grant is also applicable to first homeowners. So but again, it's got to be combined 750 house and land cost or value. So which is a window that's closed in Cairns. You can't build for under that. So people wanting to jump on and get 30 grand for free. Yeah. And it's actually really hard to do now.
Yeah. Lot to unpack, lot to consider there, and maybe a bit of risk, but maybe in the short term with the second wind, there might be a play if someone is looking. I'm not suggesting anyone should do that. I'd still, from my perspective as a value investor, looking at property and trying to buy at start of cycles and that long-term hold, I'd be very skeptical and nervous about investing in Townsville. Yeah. It would be my purpose, but it still sounds like this is more to sort of pick your brain with your boots on the floor and with boots on the ground, I should say, and what's happening there. And it still seems to be absolutely going gangbusters.
Yeah,
there.
I mean, it certainly is. I just worry about when a bit more supply comes into the market, everything under 700, that's 700. Yeah. But hey, look, if you've bought something in the 5s and it goes to 700 by over the next 2 or 3 years, mate, you've done all right. You can sell and move that capital into something else. Yeah. So there's still value in it. It's just, is it going to continue?
It just has, I suppose it's kind of like your investment philosophy. There's so many ways to skin a cat. It might be short-term momentum things. I'm not saying it's ethically right in any way. Yeah. As I just said, I'm always been a buy and hold sort of investor. But if someone's looking for those kind of, sort of renovation type plays and maybe make a quick buck, it sounds like that could be the go here, but it would be, with that supply comes on the market, it's certainly something to be a little bit cautious of. Going to wrap up pretty soon. I just wanted to, because obviously we've got the far North Queensland sort of peninsula, if you will. I thought I might just throw in for a minute, sort of what are you sort of seeing in the likes of Mackay and Rockhampton? Are you across those markets as well?
Yeah. I do a heap in Mackay and in Rocky. More in Mackay of recent. Property prices there have, again, some are over 100% in some suburbs. Yeah. One thing that I speak to a lot of mining clientele is when coal prices take the dip, so do the property prices. But it hasn't done it this year. Coal's in the doldrums, and we're trying to work out why. And I think talking to a lot of people in the industry is mining companies become a lot smarter. A lot of work gets conducted off-site, and it's actually there's a lot of work in Mackay, like in the actual in the town, rather than having to go out to the mine site to do it right. And mining companies have just forecasted a little bit smarter than they did maybe back in the 2010s.
Yeah,
because when Mackay did its last dip, it went literally property prices fell overnight.
Okay, yeah.
They had that potential to do that, but based on all the labour this leaves, all that demand for rentals, because there's no work, right?
Yeah.
But it looks like things have changed. So, again, it's also had a lot of interstate migration.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people from Melbourne and all that have chose to call Mackay home.
Yeah, okay.
Again, it's vicinity to the Early Beach. It's a good place. It's got a good livability score, right?
Well, that would be, good livability. I mean, Early Beach and with
the
Sundays.
Build prices in Mackay are expensive. We call it mining tax. So everything in that region has a bit of mining tax on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't build a house for anything. It's 800, 850.
Yeah, 800, 850.
Yeah, it's expensive. It's an expensive place.
So expensive place, good livability score. So there'd be a bit of a thesis. So again, obviously this episode's been on more on Townsville. I think there might be a bit more to unpack there. So maybe let's get you back in and we'll have a bit more of a deep dive into Mackay, because I've never been to Mackay.
Yeah.
It's not somewhere I advocate. Obviously, I'm more of a metro person.
I just tell people tread carefully.
Yeah.
I think boots on the ground, understanding if people start losing lots of jobs there, it's so driven by mining that you just got to be a bit careful.
Yeah.
Because when it did last time it fell quick.
Well, not again going off tangent, like when we look at Gladstone was the darling that was kind of trumpeted back in 2009, 2010. I talked to my accountant, there's still a number of people who bought at the wrong time in Gladstone, still have negative equity.
Yeah.
And had a really bad time. And you just have to look at, the Australian Property Investor magazine. I always remember it quite clearly, and I talk about it a lot. And the top three, one guy was, he made a mozza in Port Hedland. The second guy was in Moranbah. He did all these townhouse developments. And I think the third person was in Gladstone. And you kind of fast forward a few years. I mean, that person who was doing all those townhouse developments in Moranbah, Moranbah is very different, obviously, to Mackay. But again, it's just buyer beware. And if someone is going into some of these markets, it's probably towards the end of the cycle. And there's a big element of risk is what I'm thinking.
People chasing yield though. You're chasing a lot of those Moranbah plays were about $2,000 a week rent for a house. People chasing yield.
Yeah,
and
indeed.
But that we don't invest for that, do we?
No, we don't. And if you go back and look at financial markets and Michael Milken and junk bonds, it does feel a little bit like that was a junk bond. In my kind of reasoning, and we'll kind of, if you go and look at Michael Milken, what happened with junk bonds in the 90s, a lot of people lost a lot of money on that sort of thing. And I think the reasoning behind a bond, if you do have a good yield and it's junk, is because there's risk associated. And that's kind of something that with Moranbah clearly in Port Hedland, like where you were getting the 2,000 a week rents. And I think, was it BHP and Rio just pulled, they said, okay, we're not going to give greedy property investors this money anymore. We're going to put tents up there or whatever and house the people ourselves. It's just something to be, I think that's a real extreme sort of view. Might be happening a little bit in Emerald or somewhere, I don't know. But certainly Mackay is going to be susceptible to this sort of stuff. Not to that level. It's going to be more diversified to your point. But certainly, again, when I think about buying in property cycles, you want to be getting that whole move. And I think at the moment, these areas, there's a bit of buyer beware. It might be steady. Yields might be okay. And to that point, Townsville, which is the point of this episode.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we're over time. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. Any last words about Townsville before we...
No, I think we covered off enough there. We might have to unpack a little bit more, maybe a coming episode as things develop over that scheme deal, I reckon, to see how that plays out. No. It's quite an exciting episode we've got planned, and we're going to talk about a younger avatar and sort of what someone can do, how they can build 2 to 3 properties pretty quickly, and how that can set them up for life in their early 20s. And there's no one better than you to talk about this through. So thanks, Kurt, and look forward to talking to you then. Thanks, Steve-O.
Cheers.